I've got something really completely different for your trader folks, and I'm very familiar with the equities market. I live in Manhattan. I have lots of friends who are fund managers and really into the market, and I'm in the market myself, but I've got something really different for everybody today, and a way to get yields outside of the equity markets, which can be good for diversification, and also a really interesting business opportunity that I have a business in that I think is fascinating, and I think everybody would be very interested in. Do you have anything preliminary, Renee, before I get rolling along here?
Nope, you should be all set to begin.
Okay. Well, thanks everybody for having me. I appreciate you being here and listening. And I've got something I promise you will be very unique and different. And what I'm going to show you is something where you can do actually 3 different things with it. You can look for high yield interest rates, and there are guys out there and women out there who have funds that actually invest in interest rate investments that I'm going to show you today. There are also people that invest for real estate for diversification. That's interesting. And then there's a really unique third opportunity that I want to show you that I think is the most fascinating thing you could ever really do. So let me without further ado really get started on this. And do take out a notepad, because I'm going to show you a lot of things that are just different and are promising. I promise you it'll be really interesting. I've seen a lot in the 28 years that I've been an investor and the 23 years that I've been an attorney, and I've never seen anything as profitable and big as tax sales and overages that I'm here to show you. And most interestingly, this has sky-high government mandated returns. We're not talking about returns that are suggested by past performance or anything like that. These are actually sky-high government mandated returns. And if you start saying government mandated or government guaranteed or returns that are guaranteed in any market thing, you're liable to get sent to the stockade and arrested. But in this particular market, the government actually mandates the returns. And here's where that comes from. The government sells high interest rate tax lien certificates at tax lien sales. And the interest rates, of course, vary by state and can go as high as 36% and sometimes even higher. And by higher, what happens in some states, they not only have an interest rate, like for example, a 36% interest rate is one that's offered in the state of Illinois. So not only do you have that, but in some other states, they also have penalties that are either on top of or instead of the interest rates. And an example is Texas, where they have 25% penalties twice a year. So if you're investing in tax liens in Texas, if they pay off the lien the day after you buy it, they have to give you a 25% penalty. And of course, you could take out your calculator and calculate that return on an annualized basis, and it would be absolutely enormous. In Texas, they also have a second penalty that if they don't pay within 6 months, then there's an additional 25% penalties. That's 50% return. So again, the 36% isn't really the cap. It actually goes higher than that. And I want to stress, these rates are set by law. I'm an attorney. I've studied this. They are set by law. They're not negotiable. As a matter of fact, you're not even dealing with the people on the other end of it, which I also think is interesting and very desirable. I'm not talking to the folks whose tax lien I own. Instead, what's happening is the government agency is talking to them. So for example, say that I buy a tax lien on the property and the owner says, all right, great, I'm ready to pay off my tax lien. I have some money together, I'm gonna go down and pay it off. But they don't have to send you a check or wire you funds or anything. They actually give it to the local county government. The local county government deposits the funds and then forwards the amount that is owed to you, including penalties and interest and principal, to you. So it's really very, very simple, because you don't have to do the servicing side of it. And I know you guys are a fairly sophisticated bunch, so I'll speak in that way to you. You don't have to do the servicing, so you don't have to worry about complying with rules about, did you send a letter that doesn't comply, or how frequently do you have to communicate, or can you call them? You don't have to do anything. It's very, very passive. The government does the work. And let me also just step back for a moment, because I realize you may not know exactly what tax liens are. A tax lien is where the government sells the right to collect the taxes on a piece of real estate. So probably all of you are familiar with paying taxes on a piece of real estate that you own. So you pay taxes, that goes to the school district, it typically goes to the county, and some to your local municipality. And the local government has to get that money. They can't wait for it, because all of that money is accounted for in their budgets. They go to pay the police, the firefighters, and everybody else, so that that money's fully accounted for. And if it's not collected, they have to do something other than just wait for someone to pay the money. So what they do is they sell off that right to collect the money to private investors. And in order to induce a private investor to put up the money, they offer you a very, very high interest rate. And frankly, they don't care what the interest rate is because they're not paying it. The person who's late on their taxes pays the interest rate. So they're perfectly happy to offer you a super high interest rate to get you induced to put up the money. And what they do with the money they collect is they pay the firefighters, they pay the police, they pay the mayor's salary, they pay to fix the roads, etc. So that's what tax lien certificates are. It's really, you're stepping into the shoes of the government with all that that entails, including first lien position. You can't even be wiped out by a mortgage. So it's really, really interesting. So let's continue on. I have a little more education I'm going to give you on this. When you buy a tax lien certificate, there are only two possible outcomes. One is that you're going to have a high yield investment. So you're going to have an investment that could be 36% interest rate. It could be penalties at 25%. Almost all of them are in the teens or high teens. There are a couple of odd states where they have bid down processes that push things down to the single digits. We don't invest in those states. But plenty of states where you get really high interest rates, and those are the ones that you go for. And what's interesting is you can tune your investing strategy to control how frequently you get properties versus how frequently you get yields. And what I mean by that is, remember, there are only two possible outcomes. One is the person pays the taxes plus interest and penalties. That gives you a high yield. The second possibility is they don't pay, and in that case, you're going to get the property. And when you get the property, you're going to get it for taxes owed. And that means, in plain English, you're going to get that property for pennies on the dollar. And I mean just a few pennies on the dollar. And the reason is they don't let these taxes get far behind before they sell off liens. It's typically that year's taxes. And if we look in America on average, the tax rate is 1.7% of the assessed value of a property. So, how would you like to get a property for 1.7% of the assessed value? And the answer is you'd love to, because you make a lot of money with it. And frankly, just to be straightforward with you, most of the time the people redeem and they pay the penalties and interest, and you make a really good yield. But with properly selected properties, and their criteria for this, and some things you would think of and some things you wouldn't. Some things you would think of, like we look at vacant properties, less likely to redeem. We look at properties that might be in an estate, less likely to redeem. We look at vacant land, less likely to redeem, et cetera. So we have criteria so you can tune how frequently you get properties versus how often you get yields. And you can do both. You can get properties for pennies on the dollar and you'll get yields. And frankly, you almost don't care what you get, because either way is a winner for you. And that's really, I think, the most important point about it. Either way is a winner. And I think for those of us, including you and I, who are in the markets, this really creates an incredible opportunity to diversify from only being in the markets. Now, we know that the markets have gone up, at least the US equities markets have gone up and up and up for the past eight or 9 years. And that's great, but that's not forever. And frankly, we're overdue for a correction. Who knows when it's going to come? I don't know. If I had that crystal ball, I'd be a lot richer than I am. But we don't know the timing on it, but we do know that it's good to diversify. And these are uncorrelated investments to the market. They are not at all correlated. And I think that's obviously a very good thing, to be uncorrelated and get super high returns. It's also a pretty big market. This is not a small opportunity we're talking about. It's a big opportunity. In a typical year, there are at least $5 billion in tax liens that are sold. And usually it ranges between $5 and $7 billion a year in tax liens that are sold. And that's a big enough market to absorb anybody's cash. And it's really good because you can pick liens up that are very inexpensive. You can get liens that are $10. You can get liens that are $100,000 and everywhere in between. And it just depends on how big the taxes are and which taxes are being sold for. But it's nice because you can actually have a diversification of many different small investments and very high interest rates in each of them. So it really it's diversification not only being in the equities markets, but also having your toe in real estate, which is pretty fantastic. And there's this third opportunity which I want to show you, which is really phenomenal, something completely out of the box and known by only a few insiders. When properties are sold at tax deed auction. Now, we were talking about tax liens, and I shifted a little on you there, so I'll explain this. In some jurisdictions, they sell tax deeds, and what that means is that you get ownership of the property at the end of that sale. So it's different than a lien in the sense that you just go there, bid, and get the property. Those are not my favorite ones to go to, but they're good. My home state was Pennsylvania. I live in New York City now, but it was once Pennsylvania, and that's primarily a tax deed state, and it was great. I got some really great properties. But what's interesting, and I think more interesting than buying the properties at tax deed auction, is that at tax deed auctions, the properties will always sell for a pretty high percentage of current value, and typically 60 to 70% of their current value. So if we look at a property, it's a sort of average property in America where it's a little over $200,000 in value. Let's say that $200,000 property sells at tax sale, it's going to sell for about 60% of its value, so $120,000. And what they'll be selling it for is typically in tax deed auctions a couple of years in back taxes. In tax deed auctions, typically the taxes will be behind 3 to 4 years, and in those cases, you're going to have 3 to 4 years worth of taxes, which is what has to be paid out of the auction money. So let's just say we'll take our average 1.7% of value per year. And I'm just going to pull out my calculator here so I can get the numbers right because it's too precise. So if we had a $200,000 property and we have 1.7% of the value in taxes, that means it's going to be $3,400 tax bill per year. And if those taxes get behind about 3 years, they'll sell the property. So we're talking $10,200 in taxes. And when the property sells for 60% of its value, you're talking about selling for $120,000. Well, if they owed $10,000 in taxes, you're talking about, there's leftover money. So we think about sells for $120,000, they owe $10,000 in taxes. There's $110,000 that's left over. And that money is owed and claimable by the former owner. And that money is called overages money. Not many people know about it. And most of the owners, worst of all, don't know about it. And here's the problem. If the owners don't know about it, they don't get it because they need to know the money is there and they have to go ask for it. Otherwise, they don't get it. And because they never ask, these poor folks have lost their home, and then they lose all the excess cash generated from the sale of their home, which is just completely insane. But that's what happens every day. And you think, well, Bob, doesn't the government help? And the answer is no, the government really doesn't help. And the reason they don't help is that the government keeps the unclaimed monies. And governments today are very hungry for money. This money's hidden under the carpet and no taxes to pay, no mad constituents. So the government keeps quiet. And if you get it, if you ask for the money, you get it. If you don't, the money is lost and it's lost forever. And this is a large market because anything that you should at all consider getting involved in should be a very large market. And on an average day in America, and I'm talking business days, Monday through Friday, 3,000 tax foreclosures are completed every day across the United States. And JP Morgan Chase, which invests in this market, they invest in the tax liens and tax deeds. They said these tax foreclosure sales generate $13.6 million each and every day. And that's a lot of money coming to the system. You have a system where 13.6 million comes in every day, and it typically sits around for 3 years before it forfeits. And so that's in a long time. You have 13.6 million piling up for 3 years. I can't do that math easily in my head, but it's a boatload of money. It's billions of dollars. And so you might think, well, why does this matter to me, Bob? I don't quite understand. We're traders, we're financial people, we're looking to improve our lives that way. Why is this overages at all important? It's important because you can get paid finder's fees of 30 to 40% helping former owners get the money. And I developed and have a business system that can get you those finder's fees. And more importantly, I have a business that I operate as a business owner. I'm not down in the trenches every day. I'm not talking to these folks. I have a business system that is about setting up a business to do that, where it runs independently of you. And that's a pretty cool business and one I really like. And let me show you, I think what I should do, I'll show you guys real quick because I know you're not tax sale people, so I just want to show you real quickly one of the deals that we did so you can see how this works. So this was a property that we were looking at to buy as an investment, just as a rental property, which I also do. And we couldn't come to terms with the owner. He wanted more money than I wanted to pay, bottom line. And so I went to the tax sale thinking, well, maybe I'll get this property at the tax sale. And I didn't, because someone else went to the tax sale and paid $150,000. It wasn't worth that much to me. The property was worth $200,000 on a good day, and it needed a lot of repairs in order to get to that $200,000 value, and it just wasn't worth it to me. But what happened? Other guy bids $150,000. The taxes owed were about $10,000. So the overage or excess funds were $140,000. I then went and contacted the former owner and just said, hey, you're owed some of this money. You know, I can go get it for you. And our fee is going to be 40% of the money. And he said, great. And why did he say great? Because he had no idea where this money was or where it was coming from. At the end of the day, the former owner gets $100,000 in his pocket, which was about the same I had offered him for the property, except I didn't need the property. And the bidder got the property, and I got $40,000. Pretty good deal. So anyway, I don't want to belabor that for too long, because I know, again, you guys are not, probably not financial people that are going to go to tax deed sale. But I do want to show you the size of this opportunity, because I think that's, to me, really important. Anytime I look at opportunities, I'm always looking at what is the size of this opportunity. So let me just switch over here. And if I could, Renee, are you still on the line?
Yep, I'm here.
Okay. I just wanted to check. I want to make sure my screen switched. Do you see a spreadsheet?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. I want to make sure it's switched. And sorry, everybody, had to do that, but I just needed to make sure that you guys can actually see this. This is an actual list that I put together. I actually put it together last month in April. So just to show you what's around. And this is from one county that we're working on, where we're working on claiming overages monies. And let me just show you a couple things about this, because I think it's fascinating. This particular state, and this is Georgia, where the state is, has 5 years that the monies accumulate until they forfeit to the state. So a lot of money is accumulated in Georgia. And if we look at this first one, Robert McIntyre, this gentleman, is owed $54,805.33, and I'm right here in column D4. If we work with him, we're going to expect a fee of $21,000, which is about 40% of what we recover for him. And if we look at this property was sold at tax sale in June of 2013. What I know, because the government records tell me this is true, is that Robert has never claimed his money. So he's owed $54,000 that he's never claimed. And I think that's astounding, but that's just the truth of it. He's never claimed the $54,000. So I know that when we reach out to Robert and say, hey, work with us, we could get you a little over $30,000, he will absolutely be thrilled. He has no idea where this money is. And for a person that's lost their property at tax sale, to cash a check for $30,000 is fantastic, life-changing, and great for them. And just as we go down, Johnny Hayes, poor guy's owed $51,000, has been owed it for almost 3 years now. He doesn't know about it. If he knew about it, he wouldn't have left it there. So when we reach out to him and say, Mr. Hayes, we can get you around $30,000 if you work with us, complete the contingent, then again, the answer to that is yes. And just a couple other ones, Elise Benfield, this is an estate, which is very common. And remember, when you're looking for properties where they're less likely to redeem, estates are a big deal. Those are ones that are a lot less likely to redeem. So nobody ever redeemed this. But what's left over, $76,789. We'll get in touch with the estate administrator. We'll tell them there's some money due the estate that for a percentage we'll go and get, and we'll get it, and we'll get $30,000 out of that. And the estate will get $40,000 approximately. So if we made it our goal just to do these, which are 12 deals in the course of a year, you'd add profits about $327,000 into your pocket. And I think as traders, this is something you consider starting a side business in. And again, just a suggestion, just something I can show you to bring in some extra money. And if you think about what you could do in the market with that money, there's a lot you can do with an extra $327,000 in a year, a lot. And it provides a nice base of income. And the way that I treat this in my life is very, very simple. I have my law practice, I do my investing, and then this is a business that essentially I'm the business owner of. It runs itself. I have very little involvement with the day-to-day. My biggest involvement, frankly, is cashing checks. The checks are sent to me. I then cash them and I send the person their portion. Like when we get Robert McIntyre, my job will be depositing this overages check of $54,000 into my business account. I'll then cut him a check for 21,000. I'm sorry, cut him a check for 30,000, and 21,000 goes into my operating account. And that's kind of my activity in the business. And that's about it. I don't really do much else. And that's what I show people how to do. So I thought that was an interesting thing. So, work a deal a month and, $327,000. Now, I will tell you, my business is bigger than that. We work about 300 deals a year. And so ours is a fairly large business. I think probably the largest business of its kind in the United States. But frankly, the 300 deals a year, which translates to about 100 deals working on any given time, because they take typically 4 to 5 months to bring to fruition. We're not even scratching the surface. I mean, the tax sale business has about 3,000 properties a day going into the being offered for sale and sold. So we're not even scratching the surface. I think this is important for you to think about because there are hundreds of millions of dollars available right this second, large finder's fees to make, and you can make a pretty simple side business of trading that generates lump sums of cash. Now, this may not be for you. This may not be your thing. It's duplicatable, it's doable, and it's interesting. Let me just look at how we're doing on timing here, 2:37. I actually want to tell you I think I will do this part. I wasn't sure if I was going to tell you this part, but I think it's funny. So due to the humor value, I will show it to you. So what we do when we do training on people setting up these businesses, we of course do some live training. And I get a guy, his name is Paul, and Paul comes up with this list of overages. And this is a really small, I'm looking at this list saying, where did you even get this thing? It's like the smallest leads I've ever seen. And these leads do exist, but I'm like, why are you working these little ones? And he said, well, I want to work on a small one because I don't want to lose too much money. And I said, okay, you got me scratching my head. What do you mean you don't want to lose too much money? And he said, well, if I mess it up, if I don't do it right, then I'll lose my portion of it, and I don't want to lose a big portion. And I said, okay, so which one are you going to work on? He picks out this little $1,723 overage. And I said, okay, I'll answer your questions because I'm not doing the work and you're the one that's going to make more or less money. So fire away, what do you got? And he really just wanted some reassurance. So what he did first, he located the former owners. Really easy to do these days. There's some online tools, in addition to Google and Facebook searches, there are online tools that your people can use to locate people very, very simply. We use one called Accurate, another one called TLO. There's some really good ones, and there's some very inexpensive ones that are powerful. So anyway, these days, easy to locate people online. So he locates them online. He sends them out an email message. We give people pre-formatted email messages. They say, yeah, $1,700, I'd love it. What do you charge? About $500. They say, great. He sends the service out to get contracts signed. And of course, I give people all the contracts they need. And he gets a check, $1,723.88. Paul keeps $517. Woohoo, big deal. I mean, I wouldn't do anything for $517, but Paul did. And I think that's great. So he's on a subsequent training call. And these are training and support calls where we train people to do it and also support and answer questions. So he goes for another one, and he's getting like a little bigger this time, $8,600 claim. And he gets $2,671. And now this is when the funny part starts. So I said to Paul, hey, I realized that we had a discussion when you first got involved that your wife said if you buy another course, she's divorcing you. And I said, are you still married? Because you did get this course. And he goes, oh yeah, I'm still married. He said, and I said, well, did you tell her about it? And he said, well, no. And I said, you didn't tell her. I said, you better tell her because you are going to get divorced if you don't tell her. He said, well, I'll tell her after the next deal. He said, could you help me with one more deal? And I said, as long as it's something more substantial, because frankly, these little BS deals. And just so you guys know, our average claim size is $38,500. So we do some substantial claims, usually at 40%. So we're making some good money. And so I said, Paul, you gotta like man up here. So like stop with these little tiny deals. It's not worth your time. So he goes, okay, I'll do a bigger one. So he comes up with a third one, $24,952.13. He does that one, gets a check for $7,400. I'm like, finally, you're like moving into big boy territory. You're not quite there yet, but you're moving to big boy territory. So I said to Paul, so did you tell your wife? And his wife's name is Donna. And he said, oh yeah, I did finally talk to Donna. And I said, okay, what did she say? He said, a really funny story. He said, I did what you told us to do, which is I had my team call the county and just check to see when they're paying out the check. And he said, I get a call from my staff that the checks were being mailed out from that county on Friday and to look for a check on Monday or Tuesday. So he said, I was all excited because it was kind of my first big check at this point. I just set up the staff and got everything running. And he said on Monday morning, he said to Donna, what time does the mailman come? And Donna said, well, like 9:30 or 10, depending on the day. And he said, okay. He said, I'm waiting for something to mail, so I'm going to go to work late. And Donna said, okay, great. And so Paul's downstairs having some coffee and a bagel and hanging out. And Donna is upstairs in the shower. And don't forget that. This is an important fact. I wouldn't tell you if it didn't matter. Donna is upstairs in the shower. So Donna's up there, sitting in the shower, doing her thing. And Paul's down having his coffee and bagel. And then he sees it, the mail truck coming down the street. Paul gets so excited, he stands up, nearly knocks over the table and spills his coffee, cinches up his bathrobe and goes running outside. And he lives in a cul-de-sac, so the mail truck had to go around in a circle. So the mail truck goes around the cul-de-sac, comes back, and the mailman hands Paul his mail. And it turns out that mailman was a guy named Sal that Paul knew from high school. So Sal's talking about the game, blah, 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 talk. Meanwhile, Paul is slowly flipping through the pile of mail that he got from Sal, and then he sees it. The envelope from the county that has the check in it. And he said he knew it had the check in it because it had one of those clear cellophane fronts, and he said you could see it was a check. And it was a very thin envelope, and he said I knew it was the check because it had the return address in the county. There's nothing else they'd be sending me. So Paul's all excited, and meanwhile Sal's blah, 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 blah. So Paul says, hey Sal, I left something on the stove, I gotta run inside. So Sal goes, okay, good seeing you, Paul. And so Paul goes running up to his door, and the funniest thing, he's holding the envelope and mail in his hands, and he said he just stopped at the front door. He looks to the left, looks to the right, doesn't see anybody, looks behind him, doesn't see anybody, and then quietly opens his door, closes it quietly, and double locks it and puts the chain across. I said, Paul, what were you doing? And he's like, oh, I didn't want anybody to see me. And I said, Paul, you realize that they don't have x-ray vision. They couldn't see your check, and it's not odd that you'd be out getting your mail, right? He goes, yeah, but I just didn't know. I'm like, that's really funny. And I said, why did you put the chain across the door? And he's like, why want anybody just walking in? And I said, do your neighbors normally just walk in the house? He goes, well, no, but you never know. So anyway, it's just kind of funny. So meanwhile, Paul goes back to the kitchen, and he's so excited. I'll do a reenactment of this. He's so excited that his hands are shaking like this. And he's like, I knew if I tried to open the envelope, I could tear the check. So he's like, what do I do? So he takes a butter knife and opens the envelope. And he actually said he'd wipe the butter knife off in his bathrobe, which is just its own story. So anyway, he's opening the envelope just like that, opens it, fans it open, pulls the check halfway out, and then the man goes crazy. He starts yelling, Donna, 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 come down, Donna. Remember, Donna's upstairs in the shower. So going, Donna, come down, Donna, come down. So Donna hears him yelling, thinks the house is caught on fire, he's fallen down and can't get up, who knows what. So she jumps out of the tub, nearly slips and falls and cracks her head. She comes running down the stairs, and she sees her lovely husband there, standing in the middle of the kitchen, holding an envelope with something halfway sticking out of it. And her hair is dripping all over the floor. She's just wrapped in a towel, and she's looking like, what is your problem? What are you doing? And Paul realizes that he's done wrong because his wife's now mad at him. So he just hands her the envelope with the check in it. And she goes, my hands are all wet. So she wipes off her hands on her towel. And the funniest thing, she holds up the envelope. She pulls out the check all the way. And then she puts the envelope down, and she's looking at the check. She looks at him, looks at the check one more time, and then classic, she looks at him and says, what have you done? Because he has this $24,000 check. And then he says to her, well, I got involved with this business. And she goes, business, another business. And he goes, yeah, but someone's working. That's a check from it. And she said, we have $24,000. And he says, no, we have $7,500, give or take a few. He said, and he explains how the business works. These people lost their house at tax sale, blah, 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 blah. And then he said the best moment in their marriage in years is she just stops. She looks at him and she says, I'm so proud of you. And she said, I knew you could do it. I knew you could do it. And she said, but you kept getting involved in these businesses, and you'd be all excited that nothing would happen. And she said, I just was really disillusioned about it. She said, but I'm really, really proud of you. So that was just a great partner thing. And this is a really cool business because not only it's something you can be proud of with your friends and family, it can be, I love that it's set up as a business. So it's not something you're actively involved in, but set up on the side as a business. And it's just really cool bringing those things to your friends and family. So I think it's cool. It's a pretty amazing business. It's also, all the things we're talking about today, tax liens, tax deed investing, and overages, are, to me, a very interesting diversification from trading. Number one, because they're completely uncorrelated from the markets, and I think that's a big deal. I think that you need to be uncorrelated from the markets. I mean, I don't know. I have no way of knowing, and I don't think any of us on this call or any of the speakers today really know the market timing. It's just impossible. The market expansion has gone on longer than anybody would have ever expected. If I said to you, back at the turn of the 2010s that this is going to continue through 2018, I would have said you were nuts. But it is continuing, and I don't think anybody really knows when it's going to stop. But I do know that you want to be diversified and not correlated completely to the markets, because you can just get hammered. And I also love that you can invest cash for yield. So you can invest in like Illinois, where they're giving 36% returns, or Texas, where there's a 25% penalty the day after you acquire the thing, and another 25% 6 months later. So you can do that, or you can have an overages business that generates cash. Or you can even diversify further into actual real estate, and you can get real estate for taxes owed. So I think it's a really interesting and an amazing opportunity. I think it's something that, as a person that's an investor, which is all of you guys, whether you're trading options or whatever you're doing, or into equities, long strategies, whatever you're doing, short strategies, I think that you should be diversified into real estate, and I think this is a great way to do it. So I have an educational program, very short and quick, that I put together in the form of a 3-session live online training course. It's May 16th, 17th, and 18th at noon. During those 3 sessions, I'm going to go in depth to the opportunities presented by tax liens, tax deeds, and overages, and as probably would make sense to you, we're going to spend a full hour on each. And what I want to do there is to explain to you how these things arise, where the opportunities are, and if you want to go forward with it, how would you get the appropriate training and support to go forward? And I think all of them are great. I do all 3 of them. I don't train in all 3 of them, but I'll give you, where we're not doing the training, I'll give you other people that do the training on them. I think it's a really good and big opportunity. And so I want to be able to spend some time with each of you on it. We do, of course, record all the training calls. So if noon Eastern time doesn't work for you on any of those days, we do record all of the calls so you can listen to them at another time if that time isn't convenient. So if for any reason that doesn't work, the timing doesn't work for you, then you can listen to another time. And we do Q&A on all the calls also. So if you have a question, you can ask. And if you listen to it later and have a question, just email it into us and we'll answer it. What we're going to be covering is which states offer tax liens, which states offer tax deeds, and which states offer overages. Because they're different states. And by the way, the state you live in doesn't control this. You can do this remotely. I actually live in New York State, in Manhattan, as I said before, and overages really aren't offered here. In New York State, for 98% of the state, there are no overages that are offered. They use a different system. But that doesn't stop me from having the biggest overages business in the country. So I'll explain, where they offer tax liens, where they offer tax deeds, and where overages are available. We'll go over the interest rates on liens in different states, so you can pick, the best interest rates. Like Illinois is a great one, 36%, but there are other great ones too. We'll also talk, most importantly, how to do due diligence. You're going to get our 10-point due diligence checklist that we use for our own purchases, and I want to show you a brand new automated online due diligence tool that I think is just fantastic. There's a tool that actually shows you remotely from the comfort of your own home the properties that are being sold at tax lien and tax deed sale. So you can see the property that's really providing security if you're buying a tax lien, because if someone doesn't pay off the lien and give you interest, then you're going to get the property. So you need to know what kind of property you're talking about, whether you would want it or not. So there's an automated system to do that, and the automated online due diligence has really been an earth changer for this, a game changer, I should say. So I'm going to show you that because I think it's pretty amazing. Again, that doesn't belong to me, belongs to someone else, but it's something that we're using successfully, and it really opens up the whole world because we can invest. Like we were out last month in Indiana buying tax liens, and the only way we could do that is by having automated tools. So I think that's pretty cool. So your investment, as much as I shudder to call $7 an investment, but your investment is $7 for this training. So it's really meant to be just a throwaway amount of money. I want you to look at this opportunity and see if it's for you. The money is obviously not making anybody rich here, but just a nominal amount of money. So live training on May 16th, 17th, and 18th. And I thought it would just be fun just to show you in my overages business. These are checks that we're actually receiving on kind of day-to-day basis. Those are actual checks that we've gotten, our students have gotten. Just give you an idea of the size of them. And it's kind of fun to do these check rolls. I'd love to see that in the future that one of you guys would be on these check rolls. The way you get this is go to bobdiamondlive.com. If you have to call us, you can. If you, for some reason, want to call and order that way, that's fine. It's 888-722-4682, the toll-free number. It's easier just to pop in the internet and go to bobdiamondlive.com. This is very simple. Again, we'll do 3 live trainings, May 16th, 17th, and 18th at noon Eastern time. They are recorded. We will do Q&A. And what I really want to do is just show you another set of opportunities and what you can do to diversify the same way that I have. And this has been, a really good aspect of my life. So that's that's what I wanted to cover today with you guys. And I hope that you enjoyed it, and I hope you learned something from it, most importantly. Let me just look real quick here so there's any questions that are hanging around out there so I can pick them up. Let's see. I see lots of, let me pick up some of these questions. Renee, is it okay if I pick up a couple questions here as we go?
Yep, of course.
Okay. Okay, there's other stuff. Man, there's all kinds of things. Looks like there are a lot of questions on other things. Let's see. Let's see. Okay, so Eugene, I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name. Do you need to be US based to get liens? No, not at all. You don't need to be US based. You don't need a US entity or corporation. There's no registration required. You don't have to be here in the United States. There's not, this is all things that are transacted by internet, phone, mail. So no, you don't need to be in the US. You don't need a US based entity. And also, especially with the liens for everybody, this is a very, very low risk opportunity. And as an attorney, I'm always attuned to risk. And you don't have risk in the sense like, could you lose your money? Yeah, if you pick the world's worst lien, I suppose you could. But what I mean by risk is you're not going to have anything where you're getting sued because someone slips and falls in the property or something. Same way the lender doesn't get sued if someone slips and falls in a property. You're essentially a lender when you hold the tax lien. So you don't need to worry about that. And certainly we have lots of people do this from all over the world, so you don't need to be there. And Kafi wants to know, then after $7 and I decide to join. So we teach overages. We have other people that we'll refer you to that teach other things, that teach tax liens, that teach tax deeds. And the pricing is typically around $1,500 for most of the educational programs, at least the ones that are really complete. So it's somewhere around there. But I think the $7 is really meant to get you enough information to know, all right, what makes sense for me, and to give you a chance to ask questions. That's really where it makes sense. It's just meant for that. And my pledge to everybody is that I'll give you accurate information. It doesn't change my life one way or the other if one person gets involved with our training or not. I'd like to have lots of people to teach and to make some more interactive and interesting. But I'll just give you accurate information. You can decide what's best for you. There's lots of interesting stuff. And there are, the things that you can do is I have a friend of mine that does courthouse tours. We actually go with him to the sale to buy deeds. I have another friend that does tax lien sales and brings people to the tax lien sale, does a couple of days of training, then brings them to the sale. So I kind of know everybody in every niche of this, and I try to get you to the best people if, depending what your interest is in. And we personally do training in overages. I teach people how to set up a business that's really self-supporting and self-sustaining, that doesn't involve all of your time. Let me just, let's see. And Livin wants, let me just answer him privately. Okay, let's see. All right. Okay, so I think that's all the questions that I see. There's nothing. Let me make sure I didn't miss anything more. Yeah, I didn't miss anything. And so Renee, that's what I've got. So for those of you out there, if you want to learn more about this, just go to bobdiamondlive.com. You can register, and I will see you all next week, and we'll get in depth into each of these. And do bring your questions, because that's the time when I'll be there to answer questions. And one other warning: the training is scheduled for an hour, but because it has Q&A, it's very possible and likely that it'll go more than an hour. And the reason is that I'll stay around and answer questions till everybody's done asking questions. So, chances are it'll last, 70, 80, 90 minutes, depending on when people run out of questions. So just be aware of that and account for it in your schedule. You don't need to stay for the Q&A. I'll finish all the content within the hour, but if there are a lot of questions, it'll go on for longer. I'll stay and answer questions. To get an attorney to hang around and answer questions all day is not typically an easy thing, but I'm glad to do it. I'm glad to be of service. So